My name is Emily. I'm 41. And lately, I feel like I'm disappearing. It sounds dramatic, I know. I'm still here, still breathing, still smiling at the neighbors, still remembering to pick up oat milk for his damn smoothies. But inside? I don't know. Something's quieted. Like someone turned the volume down on who I used to be. I've been with Daniel for 12 years. Married for 9. And for a long time, we were good. Not just good, fun, fiery, full of this little secret world we built between us. I used to laugh at his dumb impersonations, and he used to look at me like I was the only woman in the room. Even when my hair was wet and I had zit cream on. I used to feel sexy when he touched me. Like I mattered. Like my body was something more than practical. But somewhere along the way, between home repairs, back pain, 2 miscarriages, and the quiet swallowing of so many disappointments, we just dulled. Or maybe I did. And I didn't realize how far I drifted until that afternoon last month, when he was just fixing the sink. God, I feel ridiculous even saying it. But it hit me like a wave. He was under the counter, wearing one of his old gray t-shirts, the back stretched tight across his shoulders. His arms were flexed, reaching up into the cabinet, and there was this tiny crease between his eyebrows like he was concentrating hard. I stood there, pretending to scroll on my phone, but I couldn't stop watching him. Not because he looked particularly hot or anything, not in the usual sense, but because something about the moment felt foreign to me. He looked strong, capable, quiet, familiar, but unreachable. And for some reason, I wanted to cry. I realized I couldn't remember the last time we touched, and it felt like connection. We still kissed, sure. But they were quick, polite. The kind you give someone out of habit, like saying bless you after a sneeze. We still cuddled sometimes on the couch, but I always felt him shift away after a few minutes, like his body was never fully resting next to mine. Even when he wrapped his arms around me in bed, it felt more like claiming than comfort. Last week, he came up behind me while I was chopping vegetables, pressed a kiss to my neck. Normally, I would have melted. Years ago, I would have leaned back into his chest, maybe grabbed his hand and slid it under my shirt just to feel close. But instead, I tensed, smiled tightly, said, "Dinner's almost ready." He didn't say anything, just rubbed my shoulder and walked off. It's not that he's cruel. He's never raised his voice to me. He still mows the lawn every Saturday and checks the oil in my car and sends me those dumb reels on Instagram he thinks I'll laugh at. But there's a space between us now. A quiet, aching space. And I don't know how it got so wide. When he fixed the sink and finally stood up, wiping his hands on a dish towel, I asked if he wanted tea. He looked surprised, then nodded. "Thanks, he said, smiling the way he used to. And for a second, I wanted to throw my arms around him and beg him to see me. Really see me. But I didn't. I just turned on the kettle and said, "I'll bring it over." And that night, when he reached for me in bed, just a hand on my hip, nothing demanding, I didn't pull away. But I didn't lean in either. I just let it sit there, unsure of whether it meant anything. That was the moment I knew something had changed. Not in him. In me. And I didn't know how to say it without hurting us both. Daniel isn't a bad man. I need to say that up front. He's kind. Steady. The kind of man who rehangs the picture frames when they tilt even slightly, who checks the doors are locked twice every night, who folds the laundry better than I do. He's a high school physics teacher, loves explaining things, even when no one asked, and has this calming presence that once made me feel safe. I used to joke that his love language was fixing stuff. But I think that's the problem now. He keeps fixing things. Just not me. The other night, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, pulling my hair into a messy bun, when he came up behind me. He slid his hands onto my waist, rested his chin on my shoulder. "You're beautiful," he whispered. I froze. It wasn't the words, it was the timing. I had just been crying quietly in the bathroom for 10 minutes, wiping mascara from under my eyes with toilet paper. He hadn't noticed. Or maybe he had, and thought this was the solution. I turned slightly toward him, searching his face. "Do you really think that? Or are you just saying it because you want something?" His hands dropped from my waist like I'd stung him. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. I wasn't accusing him of anything, but I was tired of his love coming in touches when what I needed was words. Understanding. Space to breathe. He stepped back, confusion flashing in his eyes. I'm just trying to connect, Em. And that hit me because that's what I used to want. Physical affection. The casual brushing of hands, the inside jokes, the hugs from behind while I made coffee. But lately, every time he touches me, it feels like he's skipping a step. Like he doesn't want to talk, just hold me and hope it rewrites everything we're not saying. Yesterday, I told him I was feeling overwhelmed. Work's been a mess, my mom's health has been declining, and I've been waking up at 4 a.m. with anxiety scratching at my chest like a trapped bird. He listened for maybe a minute, then wrapped his arms around me and said, "Let me take care of you." And kissed me. Not passionately. Not even tenderly. Just as a placeholder. A response. And in that moment, I hated that kiss. Not because of him, but because I felt more alone in it than I did before it started. "I don't need to be taken care of," I said softly, pulling away. He blinked. "But I thought I need to be heard, Daniel. Not just touched." He looked at me like I'd spoken in another language. And maybe I had. He grew up in a home where emotions were uncomfortable and solving things meant shutting them down. He once told me his dad only hugged him when someone died. So Daniel learned to fix, not feel. To show up with actions. Hugs. Sex. Chores. And to him, that's love. To me, it's starting to feel like a cover. We're two people trying to love in completely different dialects. And I'm so tired of translating. Last week, we argued over something stupid. The trash hadn't been taken out and I snapped. But it wasn't about the trash. It was about me folding up who I was, day after day, into something small enough to fit into his version of closeness. That night, he came to bed late. Slid in beside me. Pulled the blanket over us and gently placed a hand on my back. And I just stared at the wall, blinking back tears, my body still and unwelcoming. He exhaled and turned away, slowly, like he didn't want to disturb me. And I knew he thought he was trying. But it still wasn't what I needed. I don't even remember when I started flinching. It's not obvious. Not the kind that makes people gasp or pull back with alarm. It's subtle, almost microscopic. A barely there stiffening in my spine when he touches the small of my back. A half-second pause before I return his kiss. A breath I hold when he slides his hand across my thigh under the covers. I used to crave his touch. I used to feel lucky when his fingers skimmed my waist in the kitchen, or when he pressed his palm to the back of my neck while we kissed, like he needed to anchor me to him. But now? Every gesture feels like an answer to a question I haven't asked, or worse, a way to avoid asking it altogether. Last night, I was washing the dishes. We had just finished eating chicken curry and rice, something simple, and the conversation had been quiet. Not cold, just filled with weather updates and a rundown of our grocery list. No eye contact. No real questions. Just noise to fill the silence. He came up behind me and playfully slapped my butt. Not hard. Not aggressive. Just one of those things couples do when they still think they're allowed to pretend everything's okay. I laughed, but it was the kind of laugh I hated, tight, automatic, hollow. He grinned and leaned in, wrapping his arms around my waist. "You smell like coconut," he said against my neck, like that was the most intimate thing in the world. But I was already slipping out of his grasp. "Hot water," I mumbled, holding up my soapy hands as an excuse to pull away. "I'll splash you." He stepped back, his smile faltering. "Right. Sorry." I wanted to scream. Not because of him, not really. Because I hated how I was becoming someone who recoiled from love. Later, he tried again. We were in bed. I was facing away from him, curled around a pillow like a shield. He moved closer, his chest pressing softly into my back, his hand sliding under my shirt. It wasn't rough. It wasn't demanding. It was gentle, maybe even sweet. But all I could think was, why does everything have to turn into sex? My body went still. My breath shallow. And he must have felt it because he froze too. After a moment, he whispered, "Sorry." "I'm tired," I said, louder than necessary. "I've got an early morning." He didn't say anything, just rolled away and faced the other direction. I stared at the ceiling for a long time after that, blinking against the burn behind my eyes. The truth is, I want him. I want to feel that spark again, that thrill when he touches me, that sense that we're still a team, not just two people orbiting the same routines. But right now, even his hand on my leg feels like a burden I have to respond to, like an expectation I can't meet. And I hate myself for that. I hate that I can't explain it without sounding like I don't love him. Because I do. But I also miss myself. And I'm starting to wonder if I disappeared somewhere in all the ways we stopped asking each other what we really needed. It happened at the worst possible time. Not in some quiet, tender moment where feelings naturally spill out. No, it happened over dinner. A stupid Tuesday night dinner. I'd made roasted salmon, the one thing I know how to cook without screwing it up. We were sitting at the table, the sound of the cutlery scraping against our plates, the hum of the dishwasher in the background, and Daniel was talking about something one of his students said. I wasn't really listening. I was watching him chew, watching the way his jaw moved, wondering if he even noticed that we hadn't had a real conversation in weeks, just schedules and bills and "Did you let the dog out?" Then he reached across the table, touched my hand, and smiled. "You know I love you, right?" That should have melted me. A few years ago, it would have made my heart race. But tonight, I just broke. I laughed. Bitter and short. Daniel blinked. "What?" "You love me," I said, voice shaking. "Do you even see me?" He sat back, confused. "Of course I do. What's going on, Em?" "I'm tired," I said, then corrected myself. "No, I'm exhausted. And not from work, not from life. From us." His face stiffened. "Okay, that's a big statement." I stood up, pacing, barely able to keep my hands from shaking. "You touch me like I'm some puzzle you're trying to solve. Like if you kiss me enough times or wrap your arms around me while I'm chopping vegetables, I'll suddenly be okay again." "I'm trying to connect with you," he said, still seated, his voice rising slightly. "You keep pulling away. You keep shutting me out. Because I don't want to kiss if you're not going to see me. If you're not going to ask me how I am, really ask. Not just pat my back and tell me it'll be fine." He stood now too, defensive. "I do ask. You shut down. I can't read your mind." I shook my head, tears blurring everything. "You don't need to read my mind. Just stop treating intimacy like a solution. It's not a fix-it button." He looked wounded. "I thought we were okay. Not perfect, but okay." "Then you haven't been paying attention." That landed harder than I meant it to. Silence fell between us. A heavy one. The kind that makes your throat close. I dropped back into my chair, burying my face in my hands. And I cried. Hard. Ugly. Not graceful tears, not the kind that make someone want to hold you. Just raw grief for whatever we used to be. Daniel stayed quiet. For a long time. And when I finally looked up, his eyes were wet too. "Is this about the other night?" he asked, his voice low. "When I touched you in bed?" "No," I said softly. "It's about every night." He sat across from me, resting his elbows on the table. "I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know what I'm doing wrong." "That's just it," I whispered. "You're not doing anything wrong. You're just not doing what I need." We sat like that for a while, neither of us knowing what to say next. And as I looked at him, this man I built a life with, this man who once made me feel like fire, I felt like I was looking at someone through a pane of glass. Someone I could still see, but couldn't quite reach. I hated myself for making him look so hurt, for not being able to just push through it, like I always have. I used to think I was strong for not complaining, for keeping it all in. But now, I just feel hollow. And the worst part is, I don't even know when the emptiness started. Only that it did. Maybe the day he fixed the sink and I couldn't stop staring, because it was the first time in a long time I'd looked at him and realized how far away we'd gotten. It's been 12 days since the meltdown. No yelling since then. No dramatic gestures. Just quiet. He still sleeps beside me, but there's an inch more space between us every night. We still talk about groceries, his lesson plans, my deadlines. But it's all surface now. Carefully worded. Neutral. Dry. I used to think distance looked like fighting or silence or someone slamming a door. But it doesn't. Not always. Sometimes distance looks like pouring him coffee in the morning and setting it down without touching his hand. Or him calling from the other room to ask if I've seen his keys, and me answering without looking up from my laptop. I still catch glimpses of who we were. He shaved yesterday and left his aftershave on a little too strong, like he always does when he's nervous. He wore that navy button-down I once told him made his shoulders look amazing. I think he was trying to remind me he's still him. And part of me wanted to say something. To reach out. But the other part, the louder one, felt too raw. Like if I let myself go soft, I'd crumble again. He hasn't tried to touch me since that night. And I don't know if I'm relieved or disappointed. Maybe both. I think what hurts most is seeing him hurting now. He's been quieter. Slower in his movements. He stopped sending me funny videos, and when we sit on the couch at night, he doesn't even pretend to reach for my hand anymore. I caught him watching me while I folded laundry the other night. He looked tired. Not in the physical sense, but in that deep, emotional way, like someone who doesn't know if they're still welcome in their own home. And it made my chest ache. Because I know I'm not the only one in pain. Daniel isn't the villain in this. He's just as lost as I am. We've both been trying, just in completely different ways. And I'm beginning to realize that neither of us learned how to talk about what we need. We just assumed love would carry the rest. I miss him. Not just the physical stuff, I miss the way we used to look at each other. With curiosity. With playfulness. Like we saw each other completely. Now, I don't even know if we're seeing each other at all. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom last night while he sat on the bed lacing his shoes. I wanted to say something. Ask if he wanted to go for a walk. Share how I've been feeling. Open that old door again. But I froze. And he left without a word. We're both waiting. Both stuck in this stalemate, hoping the other one reaches first. And tonight, I'm asking myself the question I've been afraid to face. Do I still want to try? Or has the part of me that used to believe in us quietly slipped away? I didn't plan to say anything. I'd told myself I'd just keep folding the towels, keep wiping down the counter, keep moving through the motions of the day like always. But when he walked into the kitchen, t-shirt wrinkled, coffee half drunk, eyes dim, I couldn't hold it anymore. I miss us, I said. Just like that. He froze mid-step, then slowly turned toward me. You do? I nodded, afraid to look up. I miss the way we used to laugh. I miss when a kiss didn't feel like a question. He walked over carefully, like I might disappear. And then, gently, he touched my wrist. I don't know how to fix this, he said. I've been trying. But I think I've been trying the wrong way. I looked up at him. And for the first time in weeks, his face didn't look defensive. It looked open. I don't need you to fix it, I whispered. I just need you to see me. Ask how I feel. Sit with me in it, even if it's messy. He exhaled, nodded. Can we try? Together, I mean. Not just patch things up, but really start again. I didn't answer right away. I stepped forward and rested my forehead against his chest. He wrapped his arms around me, not tightly, not desperately. Just enough. And it wasn't about sex or solving anything. It was just stillness. Warmth. A beginning. That night, we didn't talk much. We watched a movie and sat close, knees touching. He fell asleep on the couch with his hand resting on my thigh, fingers curled just slightly. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't pull away. If you had asked me a few months ago if I was happy, I would have smiled and said, sure. Because that's what we do, isn't it? We smile. We stay. We make dinner and fold towels and kiss our husbands goodnight and pretend we're not slowly vanishing inside. But something changed that afternoon. He was just fixing the sink, kneeling there like he always does, focused, quiet, so casual about it. And I couldn't stop staring, because it hit me, this man is mine, but I don't feel known by him anymore. Not really. Not like I used to. And in that moment, I felt this wave of grief for all the tiny ways we'd been drifting. For all the evenings we didn't talk, for every kiss that felt more like an obligation than affection. For the countless times I swallowed my hurt because I didn't want to seem ungrateful. For how invisible I had allowed myself to become. It scared me, because I thought long-term love would protect us from that kind of disconnection. I thought if you chose a good man, a steady one, you wouldn't have to worry about ending up in a cold bed, staring at a ceiling, wondering if you're still wanted. But I've learned something painful and human. Even good people can grow apart. Even loving marriages can lose their language. We stopped speaking ours. He thought love meant doing, touching, fixing. I needed it to mean asking, noticing, listening. Neither of us was wrong, but neither of us was reaching the other either. I wish I could say we had one long, tearful conversation and everything fell back into place. But that's not real life. In real life, healing is slow and awkward. It's uncomfortable silences and new habits and learning how to say, I feel lonely, without flinching. It's sitting together on the couch and not filling the air with distractions. It's touching his hand without it being a signal for sex. It's letting him see you cry without rushing to explain it away. It's both of us realizing we had stopped being curious about each other and deciding we want to start again. There are still moments I catch myself withdrawing. Still nights when his hand on my hip makes me tense before I remember he's learning too. That love isn't just what you offer. It's how you ask someone what they need and stay long enough to really hear it. The truth is, I almost walked away. Not because I didn't love him anymore, but because I didn't recognize myself in our marriage. And I think that's what so many people miss. Sometimes you're not leaving them. You're leaving the version of you that forgot how to ask for more. But I stayed. Not out of fear. Not out of comfort. But because one morning, he touched my face, not in desire, not in apology, but in acknowledgement, and whispered, I see you. And something in me exhaled. That's what I needed. Not a solution. Not a fix. Just that. To be seen. To be chosen again. And, maybe most importantly, to choose myself in the process. So if you're where I was, lost in the quiet, aching middle of a relationship that used to feel like home, I'll tell you this. Don't settle for being held without being understood. Ask for more. Even if your voice shakes. Because love, real love, isn't just about staying. It's about staying awake.